It's not unusual to hear an American politician say that they are pro-Israel or stand with Israel. It's certainly not unusual to hear this president say it. But in this case, with these two Democratic congresswomen, we have to look at it a little bit more deeply. And we have to listen to what the two Democratic women said in their answer today. Listen to this.
It is unfortunate that Prime Minister Netanyahu has apparently taken a page out of Trump's book, and even direction from Trump to deny this opportunity.
The Muslim community and the Jewish community are being othered and made into the boogeyman by this administration.
Now, the president says this is about being pro-Israel, pro-Jewish. These two say no. It's all about anti-Muslim, anti-brown people, and anti-women. Let's use this as a start of tonight's great debate with Angela Rye and Patrick Griffin. It's good to have you both on the show. Patrick, what do you think of that premise, that this is about the president using two people who he loves to make the face of the Democratic Party because it helps divide us and them, and that's what's motivating him going after them about Israel?
Chris, I will tell you that Donald Trump should go play the lottery. The fact that he has drawn these two women, these four women, the squad, if you will, and has been able to paint them as the progressive leftist left of the Democratic Party, the guy should play the lottery.
Why?
I mean, you can't get luckier than this.
Why is it lucky that they're Muslim and brown?
Because, no, Chris, come on, not at all. This has to do with the fact
I mean, that's the only thing that seems obvious to me. What's obvious?
Things that these folks stand for are not going to work in swing states in this country. It's precisely why Donald Trump will cruise again to maybe a very narrow election victory, but he's going to win. This stuff doesn't sell with most people outside of Manhattan, Los Angeles, and parts of New York.
So, Patrick, let's just take a look at this stuff, and I'll bounce it to Angela. But just as a point of order here, in terms of wanting to posture himself as a way that shows an affinity to or an allegiance with and a protection of Jewish people or Jewish Americans, let's just put up on the screen what he hasn't talked about while he's been talking about Tlaib and Omar. He didn't mention the guy who tried to run down a bunch of Jewish people and hurt people over the weekend. He's downplayed the threat of white nationalism. He says not a big deal, even though those are the people going after Jewish people in this country most and doing the most murdering. And he backed off gun control, which is something that would be relevant if you are being hunted by haters like Jewish people are and others in this country. But Angela, Patrick says the president's lucky because of these two, but it's because of what they are selling as policy, not how they appear. Your response?
Yeah, I think it's a really unfortunate time in this country when people who just are seeking greater access to health care are demonized, when people who are seeking solutions to the types of climate change that have poisoned small children are deemed as radical and dangerous, a day and age where racism is taken, head on, and they're dealing with the types of issues that have divided this country for far too long, frankly, since its foundation. It is unfortunate that now this is about winning elections more than this is about changing the consciousness of people to ensure that we begin to do the right thing. So I will take the squad any day over Donald Trump, where they challenge us to be our best selves, where they say occupation no more of Israel and Palestine, taking the same tone, Chris, that Nelson Mandela did before his death. So I'm hard-pressed to understand why this is about winning when the win is not a long-term solution at all. It is about appealing to the worst among us, the worst fears among us, for white folks who are afraid of becoming the minority in this country, appealing to the fears and the prejudices and the bigotry and the xenophobia and the racism in people's hearts.
All right.
That is problematic. So if this is about winning an election at all costs and consciousness and the right thing be damned, okay, but I think we have a lot more to lose, and we're seeing it every single day.
It's not unusual in politics for people to play to advantage because they think they're going to win. But, Patrick, the idea of whom he's picking, there are a lot of Democrats who believe the kinds of things that these two do. They just don't look like them.
Chris, we're back to this identity politics. This is the worst kind
Yeah.
of thing.
You don't
Trump
think
didn't
that this
pick
is a
them.
play
They
for
picked
him?
Doing
themselves.
identity politics.
They picked themselves, Chris. The fact of the matter is, these members of Congress have decided to stand up and speak out for the Democratic caucus. Nancy Pelosi can't even control these folks. This has nothing to do with the color of their skin. This has everything to do with the fact that they are supporting terrorist organizations in Israel. But nobody even knew what the BDS was before we started hearing about all this stuff. We need to be very, very careful here. This is unfortunately
talk about
politics.
terrorism.
Politics is about elections. This isn't about terrorism.
Let's talk about terrorism.
This is about
Let's
the
talk
fact
about
that
terrorism. You
these
know who the
four
greatest
women,
terrorists are in this
particularly
country?
these two, have taken over the Democratic Party, hijacked it from their own speaker.
You think they've taken it over, Angela?
Interesting. It's so interesting that you use the term for the only two Muslim women in Congress. The term you chose
Got nothing
to use,
to do with
sir,
whether they're
is
Muslim or not,
hijacking.
Angela.
Oh, really?
Nothing
you
to do with
chose
that.
to use
Absolutely
the
not.
term hijacking. I beg to differ, and
That's right. I did,
absolutely
because they've hijacked the
condemn
party
your remarks.
from their own
Yeah, okay.
principles.
That's a
From
real
their own
interesting word
principles,
choice, and you
they've
understand
hijacked
why.
the Democratic Party.
You can
and
talk
that's one
over
of the
me all
reasons
you
why
want to, but the bottom
Donald
line
Trump
is the
should play the
greatest
lottery.
terrorist
He's a
group
lucky
in
guy.
this country are white men who think like you. That is
Yes,
the greatest
you're
terrorist
right.
threat in
You're
this country.
absolutely right. It's all because of guys like me. That's silly rhetoric. It doesn't get us
No,
to
it's
where
not. You know
I
what's
think this
silly?
show
The
started,
fact that you're
which
on here
was-
knowing how dangerous times are right now, defending this nonsense, calling people these folks,
what's
talking
silly?
about
But
they
hold on, hold on.
hijacked the
Silly.
party.
Hold on one
What's-
second. Let's
what's
reset.
silly,
Let's
That's
reset the
dangerous.
table.
It's
Reset the
dangerous.
table. Hold on,
What's
Angela.
silly is
When you
that
hold on,
you
just to
don't
be
accept
clear,
the fact
Patrick,
that
give me a
someone
second.
else can have an
It's not
opinion.
Patrick,
silly. There's nothing
hey,
silly about
hello.
this conversation.
Whose show is it?
Sorry,
Calm
Chris.
down so we can have a rational conversation. You are not saying, Angela, that he is a terrorist. You're saying that the threat in this country is what exactly?
It's racist rhetoric, and that type of rhetoric fueling the type of hatred that is resulting in white supremacist threats, the increase in hate crimes all over this country,
Hold on,
and
okay,
hate
I take your
incidents, and
point.
it is happening.
Patrick, why are you shaking
Okay.
your head on this? This is a matter
Because,
of
Chris,
fact.
this is-
When you look at the ADL,
Chris, it's not
white
a matter of
nationalists,
fact.
white
I'm sorry, my
supremacists are
friend, it's not.
three-quarter. Hold on, Patrick, let me finish. You can't listen. Don't make a mistake I make
can't
every once in a
handle
while.
the truth.
Don't come at me before I finish the point. It mitigates the strength
Okay,
of the
go ahead.
rebuttal. So the idea is this. Why would you shake your head about what you know as a matter of fact? We are dealing with terrorism in this country that is done at the hand of white nationalists, supremacists, and extremists. We know that. They're responsible for three-quarters of it. Your own FBI director that the president picked said the same thing. That's the big threat. Why would you shake your head no? You accept all that as fact, do you not?
Because the fact of the matter is, we're talking about politics here. We're talking about the fact that you set this up, Chris, that the president has sort of used these particular opponents to define how he sees this election, this
Yes.
political election. And what I'm telling you is, when we get into this kind of rhetoric, that it's all the fault of white males and it's all
It's
about
not all the
hatred and so
fault
on and
of
so
white
forth.
males. I'm saying
Chris,
he picked
Chris,
these
I'm not
women,
quoting
Patrick.
you.
He picked
Chris,
these.
I'm not quoting
Patrick,
you.
he picked these women.
Chris,
He
he didn't
refuses
pick
to
these
call
women.
out white nationalism unless he
Chris,
says, but don't
Chris.
forget about the left. He says Antifa must be on the list of terroristic organizations. He does not say that about neo-Nazis. Why?
No,
Chris,
he says,
these women have picked
mental illness
themselves.
instead.
They chose to hold a press conference today in Washington. They decide to drive the Democrat agenda, and it gives President Trump the material, fortunately or unfortunately, he
And
needs.
you think it has
to get
nothing
weeks
to
and
do with
weeks
the
of
fact that she
conversation
has a
about this.
hijab on her head and that she's
It
Muslim
has.
and brown?
I don't believe so. I do not believe that.
Well,
but you
let's-
may.
let's-
I will just tell you,
let's-
I don't need to believe that because I don't think that's it. She says
But you know
outrageous
why?
things, no
It
matter what
doesn't
color her
serve you
skin
to
is.
Last
believe
or
word
what
to
her
you,
religion-
Angela. All right,
religious
Patrick, I take
background
your
is.
point. Last word to you, Angela.
Patrick, and you know, the challenge here is it doesn't serve you to believe it because it doesn't feel right, right? It makes you a little uncomfortable. And so the challenge that we
Doesn't
have
make
here
me
is you have the
uncomfortable at all,
opportunity.
Angela. Not a
Yeah,
bit.
just like hijacking in
Not a
these
bit.
folks. But I think the reality of it is very simple. You have the
on.
opportunity right now to do the right thing instead of just choosing what's politically expedient to you. And I challenge you and your colleagues and everybody else who may be afraid watching this program. We're not your enemies. These folks are as American as you. They look a little
what makes you
different.
think that I view you as my
I'm
enemy,
talking about
Angela?
the same type of rhetoric that Donald Trump used against
right.
President Obama when he was not from this country, right?
But
This
this
is
is
the
one of
same
the
toxic,
reasons that this has
dangerous
escalated
rhetoric.
into this
But I'm
kind of
telling you,
a
it's not
All
right.
right,
It's
Angela,
not
I
right.
take the point,
It's not
Patrick.
right.
I
We
take
get
the point.
nowhere like this.
Just one point of order. When you say this is why it's escalated, yeah, with this president, he needs to undo the reputation for using race against a sitting president when he knew it was BS. And by doing more of it, it doesn't help him outlive his own reputation. But I appreciate the arguments on both sides. Patrick, thank you as always. Angela, as well. Thank you.